Ahoy! Today I have a slightly unusual topic that I wanted to talk about, just because it's something that I did this year. We're coming towards the end of the year, and I figured it's the best time to do it now. So, 1 year ago, shortly before the beginning of January, I decided that this year I'm not gonna drink any alcohol. I'm completely gonna stop drinking for a year. That wasn't out of some massive change of mind or something, but rather more a natural development. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience over the year, uh, if I changed at all as a person or something, or what I generally experienced. So, first, we have to go back a little bit to when I started drinking in the first place. So, I started drinking alcohol when I was 15 years old or 14 years old. In Germany, you can drink very, very early. It's legal to drink beer at 16, so usually around 14, 15, it's pretty easy to get. And then you can drink hard liquor when you're 18. But at the time, alcohol pops were still a thing. If you remember those, basically just sweet drinks with a little bit of vodka, very cheap. So those were kind of around being phased out at the same time, but those were, I think, accessible at 16, partially for a while as well. And basically, around 17, anyone had an 18-year-old friend, and you would be drinking hard stuff if you wanted to, anyways. And I did that quite heavily for a while. So throughout my teens, once we were able to go clubbing, my friends and I really would drink a lot. We drink to the point of getting wasted at least once every weekend, if not twice, depending on how much was going on. And then over the holidays, we drink more. So yeah, it wasn't exactly the best type of habit. It wasn't dramatic to the point where we ended up being alcoholics or anything like that. It was just excessive drinking at that age in particular. And for me, that was okay then, but it may have led to some health issues in the long run. I don't know this. This could just be a random coincidence, but it could be connected to like stomach issues that I still have today. As a result of that, initially, when I didn't feel that well for a while, even then I started drinking less. We needed dedicated drivers to get to the clubs, anyways. So quite often I just end up being the dedicated driver because I didn't mind it that much. It gave me a good reason not to drink at some point. Mind you, this was after multiple years of of never driving, and it was okay for me to be in the club and be sober. I knew how to still have fun. Sometimes people actually think that I was drunk when I was completely sober while we were out. So that really wasn't a major problem for me, which allowed me to scale back my drinking habits a little bit compared to what they were at the start, at least. Then, over time, as I got older, traveled around, went to Australia and everything, a lot of things came back from time to time. So I had like basically slowed down my drinking a lot, but then when you're backpacking in Australia and you're partying a lot and everything, you end up drinking again. It's just what it was. Like it's how everyone socialized. You drink some really bad, cheap stuff. Goon, if any one of you knows that one. So that affected my drinking habits again. And then, well, once I went into uni, obviously, had my fair share of drinks as well. But over time, while I was in uni, I started working more. I started working on YouTube. I worked another job in uni and I had to study as well. So there were a lot of things coming together that kept me busy. That meant I was partying less. I also didn't like partying like close to exams because I always had this feeling that it would make me forget everything I studied for the exam if I just went out drinking. So yeah, I slowed down quite a fair bit. I still drank occasionally, but not as much. And then over the last years, there wasn't really much of a reason to drink most of the time as well, because I had been working on YouTube full time, basically 7 days a week, as most of you know, and that keeps me occupied to this day. So there wasn't really much going out in between or clubbing or anything like that. I think I'm too old for that as well. Plus, I'm in a relationship, so there's less of a reason to go out anyways. So effectively, through that, my drinking was curbed to, well, I would say maybe 25% of what it used to be, or less even. And As a result of that, I effectively ended up at a point last year where I realized, okay, I'm only really drinking in social settings, or if there's particular reasons to. For example, some of you guys may remember that when I was streaming, I did a few drunk streams. Those are just often requested. A lot of people like them. And I just figured, why not? But at the same time, I didn't particularly enjoy the result of the drunk streams. Just at some point, you just sit there and have to watch your tongue because it's Twitch, and you don't really do much. And then the next morning, you feel really groggy because you sat around drinking and you didn't go anywhere afterwards. And I feel like if you get all that energy from drinking, then you might as well go out dancing or anything, do anything like social at least. So that didn't really happen anymore, and I didn't really do drunk streams, which usually left drinking primarily to any social gatherings, friends, family, whatever. And what I realized is that quite often I would be drinking mostly because others were drinking, and I'd just be like, you know what, might as well have a drink as well, have something to hold in my hand. If it gets boring, if it gets awkward, anything, then I can just drink my drink, but not much beyond that. And I didn't really see a reason to continue that. So at the end of the year, I figured, hey, let's see if I can go an entire year without alcohol. Let's see if I can make the transition from drinking significantly less than I used to just not drinking at all, and just find out what the effects on me and on my life are. Now, I chose a very interesting year to do this, since I did not expect the year to go the way it did, obviously. I thought there were going to be some social settings where, you know, I'd be encouraged to drink, where I have to decline and go through the annoying hassle of explaining why I'm not drinking. That didn't really happen much. In the beginning of the year, actually, we met up with a friend of my girlfriend, and they ended up drinking, and we ended up like talking and stuff, and I thought we'd be hanging out with her a bit more, or a bit more often, and with her friends and whatever, which could have ended up leading to a lot of settings where everyone is drinking. That would have been the awkward one that says, no, I'm not going to drink, you all drink, which I would have been fine with, but at the same time, I knew that might have been like annoying with the decision to not drink at all ever. But then shortly afterwards, lockdowns happened, so it didn't get there. Full disclosure, I actually did have a sip of alcohol in that context because I wanted to try a drink, and I did that again later when my girlfriend brought some drinks for herself. I didn't drink, not even close to a shot or anything. I just had a sip just to get the taste. I just wanted to see what it tastes like. I didn't care about getting drunk at that point, so I didn't need that. I was just curious about the flavor, and that was all. But anyways, then the lockdowns happened, and there was no reason to go out. So the only reason to drink would have been drinking at home by myself with my girlfriend or while streaming. I didn't think that was at all fun to do. I really don't enjoy drinking, either getting drunk at home, like getting completely drunk and then not being able to go anywhere, or just having a few drinks but then not even really getting a buzz and then stopping to drink. Because at the end of the day, then I might as well not be drinking alcohol and not be putting that burden on my stomach, especially. This may be harder, I think, for other people if you don't have stomach issues tied to drinking alcohol every time you do. Then obviously it's a lot easier to do that. But that was a big reason for me to not do it. And as a result of that, I didn't drink. Like I said, I had a few sips, like very tiny sips of drinks just to taste them, but it would have been less than 0.1% alcohol overall or whatever. And now looking back, I have made a few realizations. The first one for me is, I know a lot of people basically talk about this magical relief, this feeling of clarity or whatever else. I didn't get any of that. I didn't get any of that compared to when I first drank a lot to drinking less, and I didn't get any of that now that I didn't drink at all. It didn't make a difference for my psyche or anything like that. Psyche. It was just not drinking. It didn't make a significant difference for my health either. It's still bad. It didn't make a difference for weight or muscle gain for me, which is something that obviously my body struggles with in general due to the stomach issues. But some people say that when they stop drinking, that makes a difference, and that didn't happen for me. What it made a difference in, a minor one for me, was in productivity. The problem with drinking in general is that, especially when you get a little bit older, when you're not in your early 20s anymore, that most people after drinking get pretty bad hangovers / everything else that comes with it. And I did experience those more the older I got. Like, I cannot imagine having I could not imagine having a 2-day hangover in my youth. I can very much vividly imagine that now because I had it already. And that is something that obviously hinders you from doing things. And if you need to work a lot, as I do, then that's not exactly useful. It's not exactly helpful. It's more that it becomes a distraction, and the evening of having a nice buzz doesn't really offset everything else that you lose out on, or the low after the high, basically, that you get on the next day. I think it's not really worth it for me personally right now to drink, and I think that's a big reason why I didn't get as much of a drive to do it either. Outside of that, though, I have to say, like, disappointingly, it didn't really change much. It didn't really have a major impact on any other circumstance of my life. It didn't really make a difference anywhere where I would have thought it would. I could imagine that it would make a negative difference, possibly, if this year was different, if there was a lot of socializing going on. I'm fortunately a relatively extroverted person anyways, so for me it's not really that much of an issue to just talk to people, but still, obviously, drinking alcohol opens up most people, including me, a little bit more to just go up to strangers and talk to them, basically. So I think in that regard, drinking alcohol to some degree makes things easier, just to have conversation, basically. And that is something that I didn't have an issue with this year, but I imagine it could have been something where I felt like I might have lost out on something in another year. But then again, I think it's only really something you realize in a situation where you did drink, and then you're like, oh, that's why I talked to that person, and not the other way around, where like you didn't drink and that's why I didn't talk to that person. But again, that's also a very person-dependent thing, so to speak. And I think now that I'm through with this year of like strict principle, I don't really have a plan to continue or not continue it. I'm not at a point where I say this made things significantly better in many ways, so I am never going to drink again. But I'm also not at a point where I say I see any significant benefit in drinking that would make things more fun or make me feel better or whatever else. Since at the end of the day, it doesn't really change much for me. So I don't see any reason to pick up a bottle, basically. So what I'm imagining might happen is that in some social settings, I might have a drink just to not be the odd one out, just to not like be the one in the group who's like, oh, I'm not going to join in. But also just maybe. I don't feel like I have to cave to any kind of pressure. It's just, if it's a relaxed evening or something, then I might. But at no point would I feel like I'm going to go back to drinking heavier now that this year is over, or I have any cravings or anything. That's also something interesting. I really like the taste of some alcohols, not a lot, but that's also why I had the sips, just to try the taste. And just for the sake of the taste, I might have a drink, but not so much for the alcohol part of it. There was actually a spirit in one of the liquor stores that we went to, which was an alcohol-free spirit. So basically an alcohol-free something like vodka. And I was actually very intrigued by that because I thought that's something new and interesting that could actually appeal to me. What put me off it was the price tag, which was basically the same as a normal vodka, which over here in Australia is roughly $30 to $40 Australian dollars. So I figured if it's just a standard drink, but without the alcohol, which would up the price because the alcohol tax is what ups the price so much, then I don't see why I should be paying this much for a pretty bottle. So I end up not getting it. But that's something which I would consider more than actually drinking alcohol at this point, which is very fascinating when you think about it. Yeah, I just wanted to share my experience. That's basically all that I have to say on this. I thought this was maybe interesting to talk about for some of you. I don't know. Going through different stages of life right now, drinking alcohol, not drinking alcohol, maybe taking a break this year as well, or not taking a break, drinking more this year. What I will obviously always say in that regard is a word of caution. Watch your stomach. If your stomach gives you any signs that drinking too much does not feel good on the stomach, then or maybe a good idea to give it a pause for a while and not drink through it, or maybe see a doctor as well, because the long-term impact that it could have, and especially with recent studies kind of indicating things in that direction as well, that basically excessive consumption of alcohol can damage your stomach lining in various ways for like permanently and stuff like that. I'd be careful with that particular aspect. I'd be wary of, if you're prone to that anyway. Some people are fine drinking their entire lives without ever getting any problems like that, but it's something that I think isn't really communicated enough. I know that some, like in our schools, we learned a little bit about the health risks of alcohol, but not nearly to the extent to what can happen. And I think more educating yourself about that is something that can be very helpful to know what you're doing to your body, and how often you want to do it, and how much you want to do it as well. With that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're by any chance new to the channel and this is what you stumble across, feel free to hit the sub button. I can't promise that videos like this will be all too often though. And other than that, I hope to see you for the next one soon. SLOTH out.